Welcome to today's magic show, reading out of this book, Chapter 7, The Ink-Stained Hack, starting with a quote from William Pitt from 1770, where law ends, there tyranny begins. The function of the establishment was and is the preservation of the establishment. The Official Secrets Act was presented to Parliament in 1888 by Salisbury's legal butler, Bro. Sir Richard Webster. Made law in 1889, it has ever after been abused and become a bolt hole for scoundrels. Concurrent with the Ripper scandal, literally on a day-to-day basis, the Salisbury government was engineering a foul conspiracy. Not my words, but those of the Lord Chief Justice, Lord Coleridge, in 1889, to destroy the Irish nationalist leader Charles Parnell. Chief of the CID, Sir Robert Anderson, was the helmsman of this particular conspiracy, which is why the record has scant reference to him in respect of the Whitechapel fiend. Anderson could lie like a back-alley slut, and was up to his dandruff in a clandestine duplicity. At the zenith of both his and Warren's criminal activity, the autumn of 1888, he is supposed to have gone on holiday to the continent, when in reality he was secretly manipulating and conspiring with both press and Parliament in what it was hoped would be a death blow to Parnell and his dream of an independent Ireland. Documents in respect of Anderson's covert activities were originally classified under the 100-year rule. But when the 100 years was up, they were reclassified to keep them secret in perpetuity. They are an official secret, so even today, in the 21st century, British citizens are not allowed to know what 19th century policemen were up to. In respect of Jack the Ripper, the Metropolitan Police files are not working documents of an investigation, but largely heavily weeded scraps of dubious concoction. They are not a record, but a story, as the system wanted it told, and it was Chief Inspector Donald Swanson who was chosen to tell it. After the ritualistic murder of Annie Chapman on 8th September 1888, Charles Warren took two strategic decisions relating to the Metropolitan Police's investigation. The first was a suffocating ban to prevent any information getting out. And the second, draconian control of all information within. Other than as a conduit for misinformation, the search for lairs promoting the idea of a Jew, etc., the press was to be kept at the end of a very long arm. Under pain of dismissal, recorded a contemporary pressman, the detectives refused information even to accredited representatives of the London papers. At Scotland Yard, things were no different. By a process later known as compartmentalization, information was to be channeled upwards as the exclusive property of an elite. On 15th September, exactly 1 week after Chapman's death, Warren wrote, or more likely dictated, a memo. I am convinced, he mused, that the Whitechapel murder case is one that can be successfully grappled with. Let me read that again. The Whitechapel murder case is one that can be successfully grappled with if it is systematically taken in hand. I go so far as to say that I could myself unravel the mystery, provided I could spare the time and give individual attention to it. Well, bravo to you, you self-serving idiot. And a pity it is you found time at 5 o'clock in the morning to apply individual attention to a wall. I feel, therefore, he continued, the utmost importance to be attached to putting the whole central office work in this case in the hands of one man who will have nothing else to concern himself with. That man was a 40-year-old Scot, the aforementioned Swanson, Donald, who must be acquainted with every detail, Warren's emphasis. I look upon him for the time being as the eyes and ears of the commissioner in this particular case. Acquisition of Warren's blighted organs wasn't the end of it. He must have a room to himself, and every paper, every document, every report, every telegram must pass through his hands, the hands of the Donald, that is. He must be consulted on every subject, insists the memo. I would not send any directions anywhere on the subject of the murder without consulting him, the Donald. Swanson. I give him the whole responsibility. All the papers, Warren's emphasis, in central office on the subject of the murder must be kept in his room. I must have this matter put on a proper footing. Everything depends on a careful compliance with these directions. I am sure the Swan son, Donald, complied with that very much. Certainly the subterfuge Warren was initiating dependent on compliance, and a paragraph added in his own hand is indicative of his determination to hammer the instruction home. Every document, letter received, or telegram on the subject should go to his room before being directed when necessary. This is to avoid the possibility of documents being delayed or action retarded. Underneath are the initials of those in the loop. ACB, Assistant Commissioner Alexander Carmichael Bruce, acknowledged the directive on the day it was written, as did AFW, Chief Constable Adolphus Frederick Williamson, who noted scene 15-988. Swanson's mandate covers everything. Every docket, document, plan, and telegram. Every letter received. For the time being, I want to confine interest to the receipt of just one such letter. On 29th September 1888, the Central News Agency forwarded a letter it had received to Scotland Yard. It was marked for the attention of Chief Constable Williamson, who, as signatory to Warren's instructions, was duty-bound to pass it on to Swanson post haste. Because both of them were in the same building, this shouldn't have taken more than a minute or two. Swanson was now looking at what is probably the most notorious document in this whole hideous pantomime, known subsequently as the Dear Boss letter, and considered to be the first outing of the beast's nom de plume it assigned, yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Dear Boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on horse. Okay. I am down on whores and shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled. Well, buckle up, I guess. Grand work the last job was. So is this Jedi talk now? No, Yoda talk. It sounds like Yoda talk. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope, ha ha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send it to the police officers. Just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work. Then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Don't mind me giving the trade name. Woohoo! Written at a right angle below the main text and as an apparent afterthought. Wasn't good enough to post this before. I got all the red ink off my hands. Curse it, no luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now. Ha ha. Bro Donald Swanson, Lodge of St. Peter's, 284, was an apt choice as Warren's eyes and ears. It was his responsibility to avoid the possibility of documents being delayed or action retarded. Under such an uncompromising stricture, knowledge of "Dear Boss" and the letter itself must have gone directly to Warren. We know he was in London and Scotland Yard wasn't a corner shop. If Superintendent Arnold can wake Warren in the middle of the night to inform him of some writing on a wall, it shouldn't have been a difficult task for Swanson to inform his boss of the arrival of a letter in the middle of the day. Broad daylight, no telegraph or telephone required, although the boss had both. Chances are it was only a stroll into the next door office. The ramifications of this are startling. We are talking about 29th September, the daylight before the night of the double event. By any balance of probability, it means that Warren should have known about "Dear Boss" when he scurried out of bed that night to wash off that wall. Indeed, I'd bet my low card it was the reason he did it. Following hard on his heels came a poster campaign that must rank amongst the most ridiculous in history. The Metropolitan Police reproduced the letter and a subsequent postcard and slapped posters up all over East London. The universal petition that any person recognizing the handwriting is requested to communicate with the nearest police station was rendered a tad academic, since the only person who might have recognized it was the Commissioner of Police, and he just washed it off. Oops. This novel reaction to evidence has been examined in a previous chapter with, I'm skipping this part, blah, 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 skip. Okay, so now, so now they're talking about this "Dear Boss" thing. What could this mean? So, if Mr. Begg can acknowledge the murderous trio of JJJ, I'm not looking at anyone, as familiar names in 19th century American Freemasonry, just as they were according to Bro Woodford in English, and the police themselves are able to recognize American slang in "Dear Boss," what's the problem with considering an American Freemason or someone pretending to be one as yours truly, Jack the Ripper? Just for jolly, Mr. Begg. Just as part of no clue too small. As that inimitable investigative force Sir Robert Anderson so fastidiously put it. We had an American gatherer of wombs. What's wrong with an American Ripper? Okay, so now we want to go back to the letter, because they're saying this "Dear Boss" is American slang and is a clue. So, but when we look at the letter, there's another clue that it is not written by an American, because if you look at the date, well, you can't see it, but in Europe we put the day first and then the month. So the letter was written 25th September, but in America they do it the other way around. So if it was an American, he would have written September 25. Oops. Alrighty. So, or is that a forensic leap too far? It certainly was for Charlie Warren and his boys, who were leaping in the opposite direction. Warren and his minions speedily denounced Dear Boss as a hoax. And predictably, the hypnotized herd went along with him. Ripperologist Mr. Melvin Harris is not only an expert, but according to his own dust wrapper, one of the world's top experts. And Mr. Harris tells us Dear Boss is a fake. It's the work of a juvenile, ink-stained hack, he decrees, and let's hear no more about it. The concept that this letter is a hoax begins to evaporate with the reality of its premise. Premise or premise, I'm not sure. By way of comparison, let us say an anti-terrorist officer sits at Scotland Yard, and circuitously a letter arrives threatening to blow up a plane. That night, not one, but 2 aeroplanes are blown to pieces. Is the letter a hoax? Or is the officer who tosses it in the trash, let's say Inspector Melvin Harris, making an assumption that is beyond his intellectual capacity? There are many men and women whom I revere for their cognitive expertise, but Melvin isn't one. Hoax comes from hocus pocus. A world of Tinkerbell, conjurers, and that most mesmerizing of ingredients, mystery. It is the vernacular of deception, as in a magician's trick. But where is the deception in a pair of cutthroats? Was that the work of a journalist or a psychopath? Both the letter and the writing on the wall had the intention of mocking the police, and Dear Boss came first. Dear Boss first. Unless Mr. Harris believes the killer was influenced by a letter he couldn't have seen, short of writing it himself, how could an ink-stained hack predict not only the timing, but also the tone of a murderer? Or does he think it was an immature and irresponsible journalist who cut off and brought a piece of Catherine Eddowes' apron to Goldstone Street? This history is choke-fed with the kind of mind-numbing vaudeville propagated by men like Harris. It is endless and everywhere, erupting down the years like an anaesthetising. Anaesthetising? Well, something that puts you to sleep. It is endless and everywhere, erupting down the years like an anaesthetising virus. So, let's see what the man responsible, the man who has it all, the Donald Swanson, will do next. And since we're in the world of magic tricks, I will end this video with a magic spell. And of course, I brought my magic wand. And here we go. Hocus pocus fidibus, ene mene miste, es rappelt in der Kiste, ene mene meck, und du bist weg. Da-da, da-da. Thank you.